Howdy, 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 and welcome back to Smarking Off. I haven't done any of these videos for a while, but I thought, what the hell, I've been kind of recording things intermittently and putting stuff up. I am working on the How to Make an RPG Maker series as well, if that's something that interests you. But I thought I'd do some pro wrestling topics, even though for some reason, all of a sudden on YouTube, pro wrestling is getting hit again. Or not again, it's just getting shit on for some unknown reason that nobody really understands, but fuck it. So enough rambling. So as you can see from the title card here, this is just going to be like a Voxcast, podcast thing, video, whatever. But we're smarking off on Wrestler Divas, Spotlight Whores, Troublemakers, and Bullies. Now, as someone who has actually gone through bullying when I was in school, the whole bullying thing is where I'm going to start with this, and I don't want to dwell on it for ages, but basically my view on this is simple. There's no place for it. And I mean, I've had arguments with people on this whole topic, and it's like, if you try and use man up, or any of those idiotic platitudes is what they're called, which is basically just, it's a saying, a phrase, or a saying, something you say to avoid having to deal with the actual issue. It's an avoidance thing. Because, let's say, Jim Cornette is one that made me want to talk about this, because that's basically what the position he was taking. Oh, just man up and deal with it. Even if you have to take a baseball bat to their knees. Oh yeah, like that really solves anything in the long run, Jim. And it's like, Jim Cornette is pro-gay marriage, as am I, and any sane person should be. On the basis, that there's no reason that they shouldn't be allowed to, but also because he's an atheist and hates the religious people trying to force their views on everybody else, and that whole thing. And I agree with all of that because I feel the same way. But here's the thing: if you say to someone that's being bullied, "Oh, man up," then that is no different than you telling a gay person, "Oh, just put up with civil unions, just deal with it, just put up with the homophobes and the gay bashers," and or saying to somebody that that's having to deal with sexism, "Oh, just deal with it," or racism, "just deal with it." It's one of my biggest problems with people these days is that on the left side you have the people that are now labeled SJWs, who really don't give a fuck about the cause they supposedly have, or they approach it from all the wrong ways, or they turn personal shit into social issues. But then on the other side of it, you have all the ones who are using those people as an excuse to just dismiss all racism and all sexism and all homophobia and gay bashing and all that shit. Anybody who brings it up as an SJW. So that term has actually become meaningless. It's just another ad hominem attack. In logic, an ad hominem is when you attack a person instead of what they're saying. It's like somebody says something that you don't like, and regardless of the validity of what they've said, you go, "Oh, you're just a fucking whatever. You're an SJW, so fuck off. I don't have to listen to you." Well, that doesn't make any difference. Attack what they're saying. If what they're saying is not valid, then say it's not valid and why. Don't just act like calling him an SJW or something is some sort of retort. It isn't. It's not a rebuttal. Okay? So the thing about bullies, and the reason why it's no different, well, we all know what a bully is and why they do what they do, but the thing is, the reason why it's not any different than any of those other things is because if you just say man up or whatever, you are completely refusing to acknowledge that not everybody is the same. Okay? You're talking about some, people have mental issues. I know that whole, the Bradshaw and the announcer that he was fucking with has mental issues. I'm manic depressive. He's bipolar. I don't know if there's really any difference. I prefer manic depressive because to me bipolar sounds like travel arrangements, not an illness. But people have mental issues, and they just don't like dealing with that sort of shit. They're not everybody likes being confrontational, and You know, everyone is different. Everybody has their own shit to deal with. Everybody has their own head that they have to live in, and not everybody has the mental or physical or emotional or personality-wise the ability to be forceful against people that are fucking with them. You know, handicapped people can't defend themselves. And, you know, and if you're going to say, oh, well, yeah, if it's a handicapped person, then obviously that should be dealt with. Well, then how is that really any different than somebody whose personality is just, they're not an aggressive person. They don't want to get violent with people. That's not really any different. Because, you know, all that is you're picking and choosing what is and isn't a valid reason to not man up. Well, it's bullshit. You shouldn't have to man up in the first place. That's why bullying is fucking wrong. And anybody trying to use shit like man up is just avoiding dealing with the issue. That's all it amounts to. So that's my thought on bullying. It has no fucking place in the modern world where we should be past that sort of childish, petty, ignorant bullshit. Okay, and if I was running a promotion, and I always do these smarking off things, or at least all these videos I'm going to be doing, I do it from the point of view as, if I was running a promotion, how would I run my promotion? So, my promotion, there would be no place for bullies. I don't give a fuck who it is, what they're doing, if you are, you know, even just practical jokes. If you pull a practical joke on someone, and it is obvious that they don't fucking like it, then if you do anything else to them, you know, and that tends to be the way it is. The people who don't like it are the one who get fucked with the most. That's bullying. If you know somebody doesn't like something and you continue to do it, you are behaving in a sociopathic manner. You are deciding that you're getting your jollies is more important than treating that person as a human fucking being. It is not taking the time to stop and think, would you like it if somebody was doing this to you? And not specifically what you're doing. Obviously, if you're a prankster, you don't mind getting pranked. That isn't the point. Would you like somebody kicking you in the balls every time they see you? No, you wouldn't. Okay? Well, that's an equivalent. Or anything else you don't like. Maybe there's certain sounds that really irritate the fuck out of you, like crinkling plastic. Maybe that gets on your nerves, just the sound of crinkling plastic or styrofoam rubbing together. And every time you saw somebody, they did that shit around you just because they knew it irritated you. Would you like it? Fuck no, you wouldn't. Okay? That's no different than pulling pranks on people that you know don't fucking like it. So don't fucking do it. Like I said, doesn't matter who the fuck you are. If you're the biggest star in the company and you're pulling shit like that, then you're going to be maybe a suspension the first time without pay, and then after that you're fucking gone. I don't fucking care who you are. If you cannot behave like an adult, if you're going to work for me, I'm running a business. If you can't behave like a fucking adult, then you have no place in my fucking business. Okay? And that's how I feel about bullies and really all the rest of these motherfuckers. Because, you know, I can kind of encapsulate the whole rest of this video, whatever there's going to be of it, into that. If you cannot behave like a fucking adult and perform the way I need you to and want you to for the betterment of my business, then you are a detriment and you're going to be fucking gone. Okay? And that's what I'm saying. Going back to some names. Wrestler divas. Hulk Hogan and Spotlight Whores. Biggest fucking Spotlight Whore and diva of all time. Just watch any of the old pay-per-views, or especially the OSW, old school wrestling review videos on Hogan in particular, their early ones, and you will see exactly what I'm talking about. That he did everything in his power to make sure the spotlight stayed on him. Even long after the fact that people were starting to get sick of him. And yes, it did happen. No matter how much WWE might try to revise history, right around the late 80s and getting into the early 90s, people were booing Hogan's ass. They had caught on to his bullshit, and a lot of people were getting sick of it. And that's the thing. You can only shove someone down people's throats so much before they get sick of seeing them. And the more exposure they have, the faster that's going to happen. Bruno Sammartino, if I'm remembering correctly, held the WWF title for years. But it didn't bother people because they didn't see him all the fucking time. And wrestling was run differently then. It wasn't out yet. You know, kayfabe was still in place. And it was still more like boxing. But you would only see those big matches. If you were lucky, you would only see those matches once a year. It wasn't on TV all the fucking time, and you never saw the matches on TV. You only saw those big matches in person, at shows, live. So if you didn't get the tickets, you didn't get to see Bruno defend that title. So you could go, you might only get to see Bruno defend a title if you were a big fan once a year maybe. Or not even that often. These days, they defend the fucking title on TV. Sometimes on a weekly fucking basis, it seems like. It's overexposed. That's a problem with pro wrestling, but it doesn't really have to be. But during the 80s and into the 90s and through to today, it's just gotten more and more exposed. So the longer you keep people in that main event, the more exposed they are, the more exposed to them people are, the faster you get sick of them. You can't fucking maintain it. Which is why in a modern wrestling promotion, which is what I would be running, there would be no place for that sort of bullshit. I don't care if you're the biggest draw I have. You aren't going to be forever. I have to think about next year and the year after that. I cannot put all of my eggs in just your basket. I have to have people who can replace you if I'm going to keep the shit running. So guys like Hogan and Shawn Michaels and anybody else, Kevin Nash, throughout WCW and WWE/F, through the 80s and into the 90s and all that whole era that I grew up. Well, I was a late 90s, early 2000s watcher for pro wrestling until last 2015 G1 Climax tournament. I started watching NJPW, so that's, there was like a 10-year or so gap between when I was watching wrestling and got back into watching it from back in the day to modern. This is more than that. I think I stopped watching it around 2003-ish, and then picked up again 2015, so it was about 12 years. But anyway, what I'm saying here is that there's no place for it. There's no place for the divas. There's no place for spotlight whores. There's no place for troublemakers. There's no place for bullies. Not in this world we have today. And again, it doesn't matter where you are on the card. There's no place for it. You have no right to do it. People that show up to do their job. And have a good time. You can have good times with your friends, and you can pull pranks on people that don't mind you pulling pranks. I'm not going to get on, or I wouldn't get on people as long as they're not making other people unhappy. But that's the thing. If you are deliberately trying to make someone angry or fuck with people, then you're acting like a fucking baby. You're being a child. And if you're going to work for me, that would just be my view, is that if you're going to be working for me, then I'm not putting up with that shit. If you're going to be here, I'll let a lot of shit slide as long as you're not infringing on other people. If somebody just wants to sit there quietly reading a fucking book until it's time to do their match, and then when they're done with their match, they want to get in the shower and then head to the home or the hotel or whatever, because that's just the way they are, and they're not interested in going to parties and hanging out or whatever. They're just there to do the job that they're being paid to do. Then leave them the fuck alone. You don't have any right to try and force them into being like you. Which is all that it really amounts to. They think that everybody should be like them, and anybody who isn't is something wrong with them, so fuck them. Well, fuck you, not everybody has to be like you. That's what I'm saying. You're going to pull pranks on people that don't mind the pranks and don't prank you right back. Well, that's an agreement of sorts. Everybody's consenting. But if you're doing it to people that aren't cool with it, well, then you're just being a dick. So, fuck off. You're gone. Bye. And that's my view on all of this shit, like I said. You know, if you can't do the job, and I mean that both in terms of laying down and for the 3 count, if you won't do the job, and I mean that by, and do your fucking job that I'm paying you to do, then you have no place. In my hypothetical promotion that'll probably never exist is not where I think this should apply. It really should apply to every promotion that exists. Because, the whole point of a wrestling promotion is to put on a show, and that requires teamwork. Pro wrestling is a teamwork effort. I don't give a fuck. I picked this up. I don't remember who I first heard saying it, but it is absolutely true. You think Hulk Hogan is a big, huge fucking star, or Shawn Michaels, or anybody else? Who the fuck is gonna pay to watch them stand in a ring by themselves with a thumb up their ass? Nobody. Who is going to pay to go see a wrestling show, a pay-per-view even, if there was only one match on the card? Nobody. Not even in boxing do you only get one bout. Or MMA. Nobody is going to pay for it if they think they're going to get shortchanged. And I mean, it could be an hour-long match, but it's still only one. Nobody's going to pay for that, not unless it's a cheap-ass show. You have to have an undercard and a mid-card, and you have to have an opponent. Nobody's going to pay to watch you stand in that fucking ring by yourself doing jack shit. You want to do stand-up comedy or, monologues or something, you can go fucking find a nightclub to do that shit in. Pro wrestling, you have to have another person. Or 3 other people if you're doing tag teams, or however many it takes for the match to happen. And you have to have supporting matches to keep people, to make them want to pay for the whole show. You have to have people that are, the bookers have to be there, or writers or writers. You can do both. You don't have to have just bookers or just writers. You can merge the 2 disciplines to get the best of both worlds. But you need that shit. You need somebody directing the ship. And you need people, maybe back in the day you didn't, but maybe, having agents to make sure that the matches aren't too similar. Making sure things work and flow, and, if you're doing TV shows, you need the crew that's there. And the fucking audience, don't forget about the fucking people who are paying to watch. Nobody is the most important part of a pro wrestling show. Everybody has to work together to make that shit happen, to put on a good show for the people who are paying to watch it, and then they're important too because they're the ones spending the money. If you aren't making them happy, then what the fuck is the point? There isn't one. So people, those divas and the spotlight whores who are only out for their own gain, and they're only doing it for themselves. And this includes people like, even, to me, Brock Lesnar, who only does it for the money. I'll take somebody who gives a shit over somebody who's only out for money any fucking day of the week. Because at least I can rely on the guy that gives a shit to go out there and give me something worthwhile. I don't have to worry about him taking off because somebody offered him a bigger paycheck to do something else. I don't have to, that's always a concern, but you know what I mean. I mean, that mercenary attitude of people like Lesnar. And, Luger, back in the day, was only in it for the money, because it was an easy way to make money. And, anybody like that, I have no time for him. Like I said, give me somebody who gives a fuck any day over anybody else. I don't give a fuck what they look like, what their background is. I'd take some cheap, slob-looking motherfucker that it would at least go out there and give his all over some motherfucker like Lesnar. And I do mean that honestly because, passion can make up for a lot in my book. And it's just the attitude behind it, Like I said, somebody who gives a fuck versus somebody who's being a mercenary, I'll take the person who gives a fuck any day. So I think that beats that subject into the ground, that beat that dead horse a bit. So I think I'll say thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, leave a comment, give me your 2 cents, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.